now moving to the tight end position. I love your call out here, Jake Ferguson. When you're looking through rounds 1 through 8, there are so many good tight ends that are going at really low prices. I think you picked a great one to highlight. So I want to hear what you have to say about him. But I know we've talked about him a few times. It's like this is the cutoff point for tight ends where if you don't get Ferguson, you're kind of looking on the outside to just stacking 3 guys real late. But I think Ferguson is a great, tremendous value right now. I'd love to hear your take on him.
Yeah, so the first thing I wanted to say before getting into this is I really think that personally I can make the case for just about any of the tight ends going between 50 and 100 in terms of them being a value. And those guys are Mark Andrews, who you're going to get to, Kyle Pitts, Kittle, Ingram, Ferguson, and Njoku. I just think that the tight end market being so depressed this year from where it was last year, just pushed down draft boards. There's just a case to be made for the upside of all these guys. But I really like Jake Ferguson just because outside of those guys who aren't playing a true tight end position like Mark Andrews, like Travis Kelce, who they're being more heavily used as receivers. I think as a true tight end, I think Jake Ferguson offers the most intriguing upside out of all of them. So first off, his price going 85th overall as the tight end 9, but this season it's an incredibly thin receiving room. It's somehow gotten even thinner from last year. So this season they've got Lamb, Ferguson, and Brandon Cooks, who's entering his age 31 season. I know we talk about him being a good, not necessarily a good pick, but an interesting pick, just because he's presumably the second option or will be regularly involved in this offense that we expect to have pretty high passing volume, a high pass rate. So Cooks is an interesting option, but at the end of the day, he's entering his age 31 season. And then it's a mystery at the wide receiver 3. They've got Jalen Tolbert, Kavonte Turpin, and a guy we talked about, Ryan Flournoy. So we really don't know what we're getting. It's just a really thin receiver room, and there's 3 primary options. And there's a case to be made for Ferguson to be that second option. So it's already a great environment for Ferguson to earn targets, and he earned targets consistently last year while Michael Gallup was on the team. And I know we don't think much of Michael Gallup, but he's definitely a more consistent wide receiver 3 than any of the other options that I just mentioned. So last season, he was getting consistent usage as a receiver. He took on a full-time role almost right away, and he made the most of it. He was running a high percentage of the routes in almost every game, 72% across the entire season, 72% route rate. He was averaging on the nose 6 targets per game, and he had 12 games with at least 5 targets. So that's really consistent usage out of a tight end. We see guys at the tight end position just super inconsistent. The guy that always comes to mind for me with this is Cade Otton. He's out there running like 85, 90% of the routes every game, but some games he's got 10 targets and another game he's got 2. So the 12 games with at least 5 targets is really not necessarily intriguing, but it's promising for Ferguson because he gets such consistent usage, and I just don't see that changing in terms of his role in 2024. And then outside of consistent usage as a receiver throughout the field, he gets really high usage in the red zone. And that's really what we're looking for at our tight end position. The weeks that they're going to hit our lineup is the weeks that they find the end zone. And we talked about that being important in week 17, but that's important throughout the season. If they're just able to find the end zone and you get lucky on the week that they find the end zone, they're going to hit your lineup more often than not. And he gets usage in the red zone. He was first in among tight ends. Ferguson was first in terms of targets from inside the 20, first from targets inside the 10, and second in terms of end zone targets. So end zone targets being Ferguson was actually in the end zone when he was targeted. So he gets consistent usage. We've seen throughout the entire Dak Prescott era, we've seen the Cowboys use play action at the goal line and then leak out a tight end that's just wide open for a touchdown. And it's not always going to be Jake Ferguson. There's guys like Luke Schoonmaker and Peyton Hendershot. You always see that white tight end, number 80 something, and you think it's Ferguson, but it's not always him. But so that's going to happen. But Ferguson's going to be used at the red zone, in the red zone, at the goal line, used in those play action sets, those 12 personnel sets. So I'm really excited for the role that Jake Ferguson had last year and what he'll continue to have in 2024. And who knows, maybe we see some more consistent use, not more consistent, but a higher usage rate for Ferguson without a clear third option in that offense. And he was already getting great usage in terms of a tight end last year. So I just I liked what I saw last year. I don't see a massive change in terms of what I expect for him to be doing in 2024. And I think there's even more room for his role to grow.
Yeah, he actually finished third in routes, 511 last year. And that was despite the first 4 weeks of the season. He was only running about half the routes. It wasn't really until week 5 that he started playing 75 to 80% of those pass plays. And then it was just pure blast off from there. So it definitely has room to just start the season stronger. You mentioned it seems like every single year, whether it was Dalton, Schultz, Jason, there's always a Cowboys tight end just doing damage, especially in the red zone. And it was Jake Ferguson time and time again last year. I'll just reiterate those points on Dak Prescott we made. This offense was first in total points, first in pass attempts, first in pass yards, first in passing touchdowns. And as you said, we don't really know if Brandon Cooks is actually the number 2. It could certainly be Ferguson. If the playoffs were any indication, it's a low ceiling pick, right? He had 37.3 fantasy points his last time out there against the Packers, absolutely putting a monster exclamation point on the season with 3 touchdowns, 10 catches on 12 targets, 93 yards. So you're telling me the guy doesn't have a ceiling? I don't buy that at all. Been working out with George Kittle in the offseason, been invited to the George Kittle tight end camp, the infamous one, where we've seen so many breakouts happen. So I'm all about it. I think Ferguson is a great pick. If he finishes a top 5 tight end by the time the season was over, I mean, to me, I value him and Kyle Pitts very similarly, but Kyle Pitts goes 25 picks earlier than him. I love the Jake Ferguson call. I am fully with you. It's a great way, even if you don't get CeeDee Lamb, let's say you're sitting there in that round 8 range and you don't have a tight end yet, you can pluck Jake Ferguson. You can get Dak on the way back, and you can still get a nice little Cowboy stack there. I'm a huge fan of this call. I love Ferguson. I've been definitely loading up more and more on it. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments. Check out some more videos and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.